Welcome to the Jewish Road Podcast. My name is Matt Davis.
And I'm Ron Davis.
We help Christians make sense of the roots of their faith.
And we help the Jewish community make sense of Jesus.
Thanks for joining us.
Every tribe, every tongue, Emmanuel, your king shall come. End of sorrows, end of pain. Come and praise Creator's name.
Well, hey, welcome to the Jewish Road Podcast. My name's Matt Davis, and I'm here with Big Daddy over there.
Hey, this is Ron Davis over here. We're in the same place.
Same place at the same time, but not for long. We're about to split up and we're about to hit the road. But we thought before we do, we want to be able to give an assessment of where things are at today. It's a moving target. Every day there's something different, and we get pinged constantly, whether it's from news associations or what's happening in the elections, how that impacts the world. And as usual, our minds, our hearts are always set on what's going on in the Middle East, what's happening with the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
Yeah, we've got like two separate issues of what's going on. One is what's going on in the world. And then, of course, what does God say? Where we're heading? What's the future history look like?
So this is a little bit of a springboard maybe to just launch off of this, because the season that we're about to enter into right now in Israel, and even our Jewish community here in the diaspora, the Great Dispersion, we are setting up sukkahs. What is a sukkah?
What is a sukkah?
What's up,
That is-
sukkah?
It's like a booth. It's something that is open all the way around on the sides, and it has palm branches and all kinds of branches and leaves of trees on the top.
Just think an easy up. It's an easy up.
Easy
Right.
up. Okay.
But it's not so easy, because everything with us as Jews
Yeah,
is a little bit more difficult. We like to fetch and suffer, and it has to be trouble.
Yeah.
Now, why are we putting up sukkahs in this season? It's to celebrate Sukkot. Sukkot, also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. So
Right.
when the Jewish people are doing this, what do we always have to remember, right? We remember. We never forget. It's the
God always tells us to remember. So what we're remembering when we came out of Egypt and we settled in the wilderness, and we slept and lived in tents in the wilderness. And God gave to us this whole Feast of Tabernacles to recall that event, that time of God providing for the Jewish people after the Exodus.
Yeah, so here's from the Bible. As usual, if you're looking for a Jewish feast, just go to Leviticus 23. Speak to the people of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of this 7th month, for 7 days is the Feast of Booths to the Lord. There's always a holy convocation. There's always sacrifices. But what we are supposed to do here is you are supposed to set up in this feast. We want to dwell in booths for 7 days in verse 42. All native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations shall know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. He says, set up your tents, go camping, and it'll be a reminder for our 40-year camping trip that we went on.
Right. And so this is actually the last. It's the 7th feast in Israel's all appointed times that started with Passover.
Now, this is one of those feasts that has yet to be fulfilled, and it will be fulfilled when the kingdom of God is here on earth.
Right.
Now, all throughout, though, you have the disciples are saying, "Is this the time?" You have people like Peter who says, "Should I build tents?" Right? I'm going to set up 3 tents.
Yeah. What is it? Matthew 17.
Yeah,
He talks
16 or
about it in
17.
the,
It's 17. You're right.
Yeah, the Mount of Transfiguration.
Right.
And there's Moses and there's Elijah and Yeshua is there, and Peter thinks it's great, and he's ready to set up the booths because he's thinking kingdom.
That's right. But this is not the only time, because even as Jesus is coming on the Mount of Olives, he's on the donkey, and what's everybody doing? They're putting down palm branches. And that, you think palm branches, you're thinking kingdom. Everybody's always looking forward to, is this now the time? The disciples are asking, is this now the time? Well, we have 2,000 years of hindsight, and we can look back and say that was not the time for kingdom. That was time for fulfillment of Passover. We have to have the death of the lamb. And now we are in a much, much different time. And especially you get this on the other side of October 7th, right? And so October 7th, Israel is thrust into a war. And it's not just a war, it's not a battle and we hope we win, but it's an existential battle for the very survival of the people. It's a war that the Jewish people did not ask for. And yet the world on October 8th has become very, very different.
Yeah, it's amazing because it almost seems as if all of this was pre-planned for the world uh, to turn against Israel so quickly on the next day, ready with posters and everything.
Well, it's not even that. I've seen some reports even lately, as Israel is going and they've gone through Gaza, they've gone through all the tunnels, they see the terror and the torture chambers, and now even making their way into southern Lebanon and Hezbollah. You know what they're finding in there? Not just all of the. I mean, and look, this is underneath houses and civilians, all these things that are there. But what they're finding, and actually one new thing that I just saw yesterday, like there's just never a day where I'm not shocked by evil and how evil is organized. But listen to this.
Yeah.
They they had a makeshift, they had a little baby doll, like an infant doll, and connected it to a heart, reverberating, what's it, the CPR machines where it
Yeah,
kinda sends the electric
right.
shock.
Yeah,
They had this baby and these little diodes that would connect to the baby's chest because they anticipated that when they went into Israel, they would kidnap babies. They had to figure out how are we going to keep these babies alive here in the tunnels. So they were practicing so they would have the medical equipment necessary to keep an infant alive. And so we have like the B-bus babies who are there, who've spent their first birthdays in captivity in the tunnels. And what they're finding up in Hezbollah's territory, up in Lebanon, is they're finding the exact same thing, that what we saw coming from Gaza, the Gaza Strip, the plan was exactly the same, but on a much greater, more intense level from Lebanon.
yeah. So really, right after the October 7th, they were going to take off and do this in northern Israel uh, from southern Lebanon. They were ready to attack.
Yeah,
Yeah, and did you expect such an anti-Semitic response as we saw, really coming on the next day? I mean, this thing was all pre-planned. It looks like
absolutely.
even the October 8th, and then all of the the protests. They call them protests, really not protests, but on the college campuses in America. And the thing that makes this different from um, 1930s Germany is all of that took place then was kind of localized into that part of Eastern Europe. Uh, Now, all of a sudden, this thing mushroomed so fast that it's global.
Yeah, well, it's not just happening there in the Middle East, but you see this. It's all throughout Europe. We see it here in the States, and it's shocking. Even when we did an October 7th memorial or commemoration of the day to be able to pause and remember. And we're in, Podunk, Lexington, Kentucky, and right down the road, there was a memorial for the martyrs who ended up dying on October 7th. They wanted to remember. There are Americans who are remembering the terrorists,
Yeah,
and trying to justify that. Before we get too far off, because we could probably go on about all of this forever. I want to keep it to the tabernacles, because what it does is it puts us in this situation of longing. Really, the fulfillment of tabernacles is this longing that God makes His place here on earth. Like this, we have to be asking the same question that the disciples were asking: of is it now time?
yeah,
God,
yeah.
is it time? Are you bringing the kingdom now?
Right. That was the last thing they said to him as he ascended. Will you restore the kingdom at this time? They
Right.
were always looking for the kingdom. That's where the Jewish heart is amongst those who are the Orthodox Jews, and they're waiting and looking for God to set up that kingdom and rule from Jerusalem, and so this is what we're looking for in biblically in the midst of all the chaos that's taking place in the world all around us.
Yeah. Well, and that should be here's the interesting thing, I think, is that you look at the church, the Western church, the Christians here in America, and I think you have a lot of people that are saying we long for the day of the Lord's return. We're saying Maranatha, right? Come, Lord Jesus, come. But what's interesting is we see something that's happening, that's happening to the people and even the soldiers of Israel is we're hoping and we're seeing evidence that God is returning their hearts. Most people are very surprised that of all of the people groups on earth, you look at the 1040 window and the unreached people groups and all of that, the Jews are part of a lot of that. The Jews are perhaps one of the most unreached people groups on earth. I was telling you, I was talking to a friend who lived in Israel, teaching film for a few years, and he said that Israel is one of the most godless people groups that you would ever. It's shocking because I think that the American mindset we look and we think about Israel and you think about the Orthodox rabbis, and really that's like it's 10% of the population,
Yeah, right.
vastly secular, very very secular country.
Yeah, and this perception, you know, is something that is just breeding itself. I think even within the church that well, so much of the theology has been that the church has replaced Israel,
Right.
and so uh, we look at our own people and the gospel, which was to go to the Jew first, began to be forbidden to the Jew, and eventually in the Church of England, you had to sell your wife and your kids and all of your property and everything became the wards of the church, and Jewish people just have not had a good uh, you know relationship. A very troubled past uh, between Israel and the church, and yet we need to reach them with the gospel, and yet. Um, we see in God's order and God's plan, we see what's coming. We see the next feast we're going to be celebrating in a couple of days, Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. It is a time when the fulfillment of that is that the Lord returns. He is going to tabernacle with his people and dwell with them. And so that is what we're looking forward to uh, in the I think the near future. But in the meantime, we've got a chaotic world that we're living with, and where are we? Where are we as a country? Where are we as a people? Where are believers in terms of praying for Israel, reaching out to Israel? I mean, we know that there's a lot of them around us here because they're always standing up and being vocal about it.
Well, and I think there's a lot of questions, right? Like we spoke at a place last week, and I remember there's a guy that came up to me right afterwards, and he said, "You know, yeah, I'm looking at America. America's incredibly divided. Israel aside, take Israel out of the equation. Just we are divided on absolutely every issue. We're a few weeks away from an incredibly consequential election for our country." Throw Israel back in there and it becomes this great dividing line. But this guy came up to me and said, why is it that the Jewish people are liberal Democrats when he would say that the liberal Democrats are not supportive of Israel? Now, obviously, there are obviously Democrats who are in Congress and who are in leadership of our country who are Jewish, who will say to the microphone that, yes, they support Israel, they love Israel, but we don't see that fully being fleshed out in every way.
No, and one of the questions is, you know, in this great divide that's taking place in this country, and we look at this and ask ourselves, what is actually happening? Is the United States providing enough support for Israel and for the Jewish people, politically, militarily? Um, you know, where where are we standing, and what are we putting out there that American citizens are looking at and saying, "Yeah, I think this is what we should do. Israel should cease fire. Israel should have a two-state solution," and then others saying, "No, uh, you know, they were attacked. They have to defend themselves."
Right. Well, and it was Golda. We love Golda. Golda Meir, she was
Yeah.
one of the prime ministers of Israel, and she's quoted as saying, "If the Arabs put down their guns,
Right.
we would have peace.
Right.
If Israel put down their guns, there would be no more Israel."
Israel. That's
And
right.
it really just it comes down to an existential fight that Israel has to fight. And they're looking through the lens. I mean, don't dismiss American politics and the role that it plays. We're a few weeks out from this election, and you see what happens, and all of the major players, everybody's circling. I even saw yesterday China is circling Taiwan. We have problems in Europe, and it seems like we are at this point that all of the world is saying, "What's next?"
Yeah. Well, and we see Russia and Iran really coming very close together now.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to help each other in this process. And I can see where all of a sudden, the war that Ezekiel talks about is the stage is being set for these things. There's great conflict coming.
Yeah. So, in light of all of this that's going on, and then we take that into this season of tabernacles, what do we do as believers? And most of you who are listening, you are Christians who love the Jewish people, you love the nation of Israel. What is something that we can do? What's our posture in this season as we go into tabernacles?
Well, I think the number one thing that we do is we pray for Israel. We pray, God tells us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We know that God is not going to sleep. It says he's neither slumbers nor sleeps, he who keeps Israel. And so that's one thing, but it's another thing to actually stand with the people in support, in even financial support, which we have those finances that we send over to Israel to help with
Mhm.
uh, all of the needs that are going on there, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Um, we have people on the ground who do that. So I think there's an identifying with you know the, the right here. There's a right and there's a wrong, and we need to stand with God and what His Word says and where He's going with all of this.
So even just a way to be able to look forward and to posture our hearts in the right spot is, look, you grab a tent, you can make up your own sukkah in the backyard, and or at the very very least, go outside in the next couple of weeks and look at the stars, and remember that that was the view that Israel had from the wilderness when they were with God. Imagine what it was like to wake up in the morning, you come out of your tent there in the wilderness, and there you see the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle, and the very Shekinah glory of God was right there in the midst of them. And to imagine a time, it's coming, where the kingdom will be here on earth again, and the very presence of God will be among us. There will be no more wars. Swords will be beaten into plowshares, the farming equipment, and we will not learn of war again. And I think that's so important because we have a generation now of terrorists who are training their kids, taking pictures, holding guns, pretending to kill Israelis, kill Jews. They are learning of war. There will be a day where that's not the educational process in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think those who are on that other side, the terrorists, um, you know, they are pointing their guns at the people because there's a hatred there. Israel is pointing their guns because of the fact that the people behind them are the ones that they love, and so they're protecting.
Yeah. One of the things that you're going to hear us talking about coming up, and even as we talk about the Feast of Tabernacles, and even as we are talking about some of the things that are coming up in this next season, we want to invite you to invite us that we might come and tabernacle with them. You want to go tabernacle with some people? All right.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't usually
Yeah.
say no to a lot of things, but we are going to be hitting the road here in November and December still again, and what we want to be able to do is continue to get the message out, to continue to meet new people who need to hear this message, who have no clue of what's going on other than what they read in the headline news. But There are three things that we found that we really attach ourselves to that we were doing automatically as a response. And we want you to hear this, but we'll flesh this out a lot more in the time to come. But three things. Number one is that we want to be a voice. When we are being a voice, we are advocating for and coming against the message and the narrative of anti-Semitism, coming against the message and narrative against Israel and the Jewish people. And so we have some things that are on the launching pad that are getting ready to come out that will be able to launch to help us, to help you be a voice.
Yeah. And as we are a voice out there, we also become a light.
That's right. And so that's the second thing. Be a voice and be a light. And that's really how we started in the very beginning. You and I are teachers. We've always been teachers, just trying to pull together these two acts and finally have had this a little bit more organized as far as how we message all of that. But we're teachers, and this is the ministry of the Jewish Road, is to go out there and to be a light, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's definitely a message for Israel and a message for the church. And we want to bring both of those acts together.
Yeah. And so we have be a voice, we have be a light, and then the last one is to be a blessing. And that's really our outreach. And it's really, it stems out of our friendship with ministries and with people who are on the ground in Israel. This is not a distant battle and war. We have many friends over there who text us, send us WhatsApp messages. We're watching. There's even a fear of, like, when we hear there's soldiers that have been killed. I'm always concerned that I'm going to see the face of somebody that I know over there. Or when we see red alert and we see that bombs are landing in certain places in the land, I start to think, I hope it didn't hit these people or these people, because we know people all throughout. It's a small country.
Yeah. You really don't want it to hit anybody.
Right.
And they've been pretty fortunate with that so far. And yet there are some catastrophes that have been happening now lately.
Yeah. So three things. We want you to remember that: to be a voice, to be a light, and be a blessing. Certainly more to come. But if that's a message that you would love to bring us out to your place, say, I know some people who want to hear this. We'd love to be able to share that. And whether that's your church, your small group, your home group, you have the gift of hospitality, that would be something we'd love to talk about. But new resources, new things coming. We're going to be on the road for a little bit. We have another bar mitzvah in the family. So many bar mitzvahs. So many.
Saturday.
Yeah. So good stuff happening. But we wanted to say thank you for your support. Thank you for the love and for getting the word out. We've had so many people reaching out and contacting us and following us. And it's good to be able to, like Psalm 133 says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. So thank you for listening. May you have a blessed holiday season if you've never celebrated. And by the way, we have a couple of other episodes that we've done on Sukkot historically, and we'll put those in the show notes, and you can link over to those and listen to a little bit more in depth. And we talk about the Feast of Tabernacles, not only from Act 1, but from Act 2, and how all of those come together, even that Jesus celebrated the Feast of Booths. Talks about it quite a bit. So.
Yeah. So it's a great time for us to be alive and to see the things that are happening and to point our attention toward God and seeing how He's laying out the fulfillment of all of those things that He has given to us. He has fulfilled so many prophecies. I think we can trust Him to fulfill the rest of them as we're looking forward to them. And this one is the last one. The Feast of Tabernacles.
That's right. So until then, thank you for listening. Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace
of Jerusalem.
There you go. Shalom.